We got a great show for you right now. You're going to love it. We're going to be looking at an interesting insight into Donald Trump's analysis of Vivek as a potential VP running mate. He just revealed something. We're also going to take a look at an interview with Glenn Beck on how Donald Trump says he's going to deal with this dangerous deep state. He's going to have to do something if he gets elected. And it's you don't want to miss some of these key ideas. But you know, as I'm getting ready for the show right now, and it's you know the end of the day, and I'm looking over here at my Pure Chocolate Energy, and I wonder if you guys have tried this yet, because it's actually polyphenol antioxidants. Did you know chocolate like this has antioxidants in it? That it actually also reduces appetite, and at the same time, it gives you energy. Pure, smooth chocolate energy. I want you guys to go to lancewallnau.com/energy and check out what I love to try every single day when I'm doing my show, Pure Chocolate Energy, and you'll get a pure chocolate experience for the TV show. God bless you, and let's go into the broadcast. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. We're talking right now about Trump's VP pick. There's a new development that I think is kind of charmingly characteristic of the way Trump evaluates things. Glenn Beck did this interview with former president and asked him if he watched the debates and as he said he was going to be looking for a VP pick, which is kind of hilarious because all those guys don't want to even talk, but they all want to be president. But the truth is he's looking at who's there as a potential VP, and you might be interested in his response to questions about Ramaswamy as a potential VP. Watch this.
Border. Last question. You said that you weren't going, but you would be watching the debate for a vice president. Have you thought of Vice President Ramaswamy?
Well, I think he's great. Look, anybody that said I'm the best president in a generation, I don't know, you'll have to define generation, but it's a long time. And he said it a couple of times, and he said it in 100 years. So I have to like a guy like that. You know, I can't get upset with him. But he's a smart guy. He's a young guy. He's got a lot of talent. He's a very, very intelligent person. He's got good energy, and he could be in some form of something. I tell you, I think he'd be very good. I think he's very good. I think he's really distinguished himself. He's starting to get out there a little bit. He's getting a little bit controversial. I got to tell him, be a little bit careful, because some things you have to hold in just a little bit, right? But he's got a lot of good energy, I will tell you, and he's been very nice to me, and you know, most of them have, other than Christie. Don't forget, Christie left with an 8% approval rating.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
He was tied up in Bridgegate. The whole thing. Yeah. It was a mess. He was a disaster.
It was amazing how there is.
I gotta watch that whole thing. What I love about Donald Trump is this will drive his enemies crazy. The fact that he said I'm the best president of that last generation. I mean, you know, hey, he said it a couple of times. Like you got to like the guy, as though he would pick somebody on the basis of the fact that he flattered him. That's what his enemies attribute. But Trump is more calculus than that. And what I love is the line where he says, "Well, he's got some form of something." Like he's not quite sure where that would fit, but he's got some form of something working for him in the future, and I can see him doing something. I think that. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, what's your take on this?
You know, I'm an under 45, so I really like Vivek, but I heard somebody say, like, if you're over 45, you don't really care for him. He kind of comes off as smug. If you're under 45, you really like him, because I think the younger generations are all about authentic. And while he does feel like he has polished lines, he's way more authentic than all the other guys that are up there throwing out canned line after canned line. I do think there's some red flags. I mean, he did use that Obama line, you know, skinny guy in the middle of the stage, everybody's with the weird last name. That was kind of odd. Whoever wrote that for him, that was kind of odd. You know, he's got the ties to WEF, to the World Economic Forum, where he took a scholarship, but he kind of explains, I don't know if you've heard all this, so I'm just like giving you the download. You know, and so it'll be interesting to see. You know, people are like, oh, he used to be a Democrat. Look, Trump used to be a Democrat, so we can't hold that against Trump. And so people are allowed to change their minds. So I want to see how it develops more for sure. But I really do like him.
People don't realize this about Donald Trump because they think he's a loose cannon. But then you look at him with his his lucidity and his basic calm as he's talking to Tucker. You don't see raging bull. You see someone who's kind of like, in a sense, detached from in the storm. And the reason I'm saying that is because people think that Trump just is irrational and says whatever he's thinking. He doesn't. He says what he wants to say, and he says it with a kind of an intentionality, even if it bothers you. I can remember him talking in an interview I was involved with, where he said, I talked to Donnie, his son. Okay, you're coming off a little too hot. He comments on his Twitter comments, and he tells him, son, hold it back. You're getting a little bit too steamed up there. Be careful about what you say. Cautioning Don Jr. from being too outspoken. That means that he's thinking about what he's saying. When he's poking the bear, he's poking it on purpose. But regarding this Soros-backed Vivek, and one of the things that bothers me about the election process is how people think in terms of all or nothing. And it's a very weird thing. There's a guy named Dr. Henry Cloud. If you ever get a chance to read any writing by Henry Cloud, the guy's brilliant, from Meredith Minor, counseling. Wrote a great book on boundaries and changes that heal. And he said something about psychology. He said it's human nature, and I would say particularly Christians fall in this trap, that we see people as either black or white, good or bad. We don't see them in the complexity of the gray. That is the areas that are emerging, the areas that are receding. We judge a person by a particular chapter, but not by the book. We should look at the whole volume of their life. And so one of the interesting, concepts there is that you want to totally hate DeSantis because you're totally for Trump. But that's not rational. The rational reality is that during an election cycle, people are going to have to make distinctions between themselves to fight each other. It's kind of like going to a great fight. And then you watch these guys pounding each other, trying to kill each other in a ring. And then when it's over, you see them go pat each other in the back of the head, talk to each other, and you realize, wait a second, I don't get it. What's going on? Well, they're competing, but they aren't necessarily hating each other while they do it. So it's it's kind of like why you'll see the vice president candidate was running against the president, but the guy that gets elected as president reaches back and says, look at Kamala Harris, totally eviscerates Biden, saying, you're like a white racist, what you've done. He was like stunned. It's like, what? And Nate makes, and she says, well, that's just politics. That's that's all forgotten. In the case of Vivek, the one thing that I read, and I want to correct this because my people who are all hating or all liking need to get the gray clear. He had his education was supposedly paid for by Soros. Mm-hmm. Problem is, most people don't follow this closely. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail on this, but just search it out for yourself. Soros has a brother, actually. Mm-hmm. And his brother is a conservative. You don't hear much about him because he doesn't have the money his other brother has. But he has some. And he had helped to fund college tuition for promising young students. Vivek was receiving money from a conservative Soros in the family, not from George. So he's not working for Klaus Schwab in the shadows. But how easily we leap to this. It reminds me with my friend Clay Clark, who does his Real America, what's it called?
Yeah.
Events?
Yeah.
Reawaken America. What's it called?
Reawaken America.
Reawaken America. Yes, Reawaken America. So I can remember being in a chat thread with some preachers who are notorious for being never Trump preachers. They don't like him. Anything that smacks of Christian nationalism and excessiveness, they always pointed out to me like the Praetorian Guard to protect America from Christian extremism. Which I'm always saying, well, I'm not running into it out there, and I'm pretty much extreme myself. I'm on the front lines. And they were saying, well, there's water baptisms that are going on, and people are being baptized at Clay Clark's events in the name of, in the name of the American flag and patriotism instead of the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, I called up the guy that does the baptisms. He said, no, we baptized like 300 people in the name of Jesus. It wasn't baptizing into some creed of America. Point is, I had to bring it out of the chat thread They were willing to all call it blasphemy. That's blasphemous. They're jumping on it, not checking it because they want to hear it. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
So, Mercedes Sparks.
Well, I just want to say, too, I mean, even if, and it sounds like we're defending Vivek, I just really want to say people are allowed to change their minds. I think it's one of the highest forms of enlightenment to say, you know what, I got that wrong. And I now see it, especially going through the trauma of the last 4 years. I mean, look at Joe Rogan. Look at all these other guys who are liberal/moderate who are coming out going, man, the woke mob is nuts, and their eyes have been opened. So it's okay if people change their minds. And that's what you want. We're in the battle of persuasion here.
We're in the battle of big ideas. And I'm hoping that Vivek is for real in what he's saying. And I understand he's got some controversial position on Israel. I don't want to get into all that right now. I'm just saying you don't all or nothing people.
Totally.
You can't do that because you have, especially if you're going to be someone who loves people. I mean, then you have to love the total package, and you have to love them into change and believe for change and work with them.
I mean, unless it's Mike Pence. I'm just joking.
Well, Mike, don't get me going on a different subject now. So, speaking of, there's somebody I think that now, at first I was worried about what I was going to do for subject. Now I don't have enough time to do everything I want to do. I think what I want to go to next, we got 1 minute and 15 seconds. Robert Kennedy Jr., bring the Trump mugshot in. His own conclusion was he was being interviewed by Jesse Walters, and Robert Kennedy Jr. says he thinks that the mugshot worked really well. He said it was a shrewd decision Trump made to put on a defiant face. It's working very well with his base. And he says, the mugshot is a strategic decision about the message you're conveying on how you want to look. And Kennedy's understanding of us, it worked well for him. Thank God we got guys like Kennedy. I don't agree with everything he says, but Robert Kennedy Jr. is a throwback to a different era of Americans running for office. I mean, my gosh, he's 1,000% better than the Democrats that we end up getting stuck with, and they won't support him. They won't even give him security. I mean, not like he's ever had death in his family, only his uncle and his father. He's asked for security. They're not giving it to him. These guys are wicked bad, wicked bad. And how do you love people like that? Well, I guess you just have to hold them in a place where you pray that God himself will limit the evil that they do and ask him to visit them and save them. All right, we're going to come right back after this break. I wanted to take a minute to talk about one of my great heroes of the faith, which is Mike Lindell. What's really cool about Mike is it's not just the pillow. It's the fact that the guy makes really cool products. For instance, I start my day off with my coffee. I had a cup of coffee the other day here in the office, and I said, no, I want that. It wasn't like Starbucks. It tastes better. And it was Mike's coffee. I said, what is it? They go, Mike Lindell's coffee. I said, my gosh, get a bunch of my coffees. Now, the best way to start the day is you put on these slippers, right? And have your My Coffee. If you've not worked with these slippers yet, I'm not kidding you. There's a special kind of a design that Mike has put into these with 4 layers of cushion with a solid sole and a fur interior. I call it my sip and slip strategy. I start my day off by slipping on my slippers and having a sip of Mike's coffee. But you know what else I'm curious about now? Because I've got to check out the 2.0 pillow. The 2.0 pillow actually is designed so that it distributes the heat of your own head, your face. You're lying there, and it makes it so the pillow's always cool. Now, I like that because I wake up in the middle of the night and have to flip over my pillow because it gets hot. Mike's solved that problem. I want you to go to mypillow.com, promo code Lance, because you can get a discount that I've set up for the pillows, for the coffee, and for the slippers. And do it today. You'll be happy. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show, and I want to cover something with you right now you're not hearing. American News isn't covering these 6 or 7 incidents that have already been breaking out in Europe of Islamic violence. During the Trump era, it was as though with ISIS, he took ISIS out within 6 weeks. We all forget about that. Obama had it for his whole second administration, didn't know what to do with it. Trump, bam, took it out. No one's even talking about that, one of his foreign policy achievements. But if you go to a rare news source, which is called RAIR, rarefoundation.com, giving them a free shout out. I go to some of these news sources where it's real journalism. It's not popular because it's good journalism. Rarefoundation.com, and I'm reading all the articles as they're covering the different stabbing events that are happening in Europe with angry Muslims. I believe you're going to see a reviving, sorry to say, of Islamic fundamentalism pushing back on decadent Western culture. It's one of the fault lines that is inevitably going to explode. The Biden government has let ISIS-linked migrants into America, and the FBI, not surprisingly, is struggling to track them. Well, they only get I don't know what percentage of the people that come over they actually apprehend. The rest of them are slipping through and just going into the system because this porous border is literally open to terrorists coming through and criminal elements coming through. But the FBI is conducting an investigation into over a dozen Uzbek nationals who were permitted to enter in, and they discovered the migrants had the assistance of a smuggler who is linked to ISIS. So an ISIS smuggler is bringing in 12 individuals who are potential terrorists coming through them. And so the FBI immediately began locating the migrants, looking for the migrants, wondering where the migrants went in order to become aware of, they're becoming aware of the existence of human smuggling networks. This is a big aha for the FBI right now. The FBI has obtained information from the smuggler to assist in its investigation. However, more than 15 of these have been able to break into the United States and pose a criminal threat. When will you find out about that? Well, you'll find out about that hopefully never. But if they do something, remember it happened through that porous border. Hungary's Viktor Orban. I want to talk about this for a second because nobody's vilified by the New York Times and by the weird woke journalism of the United States like Viktor Orban. Why do they not like Viktor Orban? Because he kicked Soros out of Hungary. Soros put a lot of money into Hungary because that's his home country. He was trying to push the LGBTQ agenda, and Viktor Orban said, no, we're actually going to stand by families. And we define a family as a man and a woman. We're not going to allow you to have unbridled access. Soros tried to start $200 million for a European university that would teach progressive ideas, and it got shot down again by Viktor Orban. Orban, who's constantly criticized by the United States lamestream media, is a populist nationalist figure on the world stage. And he said something kind of interesting in an interview recently with Tucker Carlson of Tucker Carlson fame. He says that Carlson asked the Prime Minister of Hungary 10 minutes into the interview what his next move would be if he were in Joe Biden's position as the head of NATO, or the head of NATO. Orban said, I'd go for peace immediately and I'd bring back Trump. You can criticize him for many reasons. I understand all the discussions going on about him right now. But, you know, the best foreign policy of the recent several decades belonged to Donald Trump. He did not initiate any new war. Biden and the Democrats have already got you in a potential nuclear confrontation with Russia. He treated nicely the North Koreans. He treated nicely the Russians and even the Chinese. He delivered the policy which was the best one for the Middle East. He brought about the Abraham Accords, so the man was brilliant at foreign policy. He's criticized that he's not educated enough to understand the complexities of the world. Well, I think if he was president at the time of the Russian invasion wouldn't have been possible. Trump is the man who can save the Western world and probably the human beings in the globe as well. Orban's arguments are particularly poignant as last month he claimed the world is heading for a major clash because of the declining influence of the United States and the emergence of now rogue international powers vying to fill the vacuum that Trump and the United States once occupied. Well, I can't argue with Viktor Orban. The guy actually his country's doing well. Hungary, Poland. These are retaining their Christian values in the midst of tremendous pressure and persecution from the obscene European Union, which has gone woke with the West. I'm upset about this, Mercedes, Rudy Giuliani, for standing with Donald Trump. They are trying to bankrupt him, and they're trying to lock him up. And because he's defamed Georgia election workers. Of course, there are 2 election workers, I suppose, in some videos of them doing stuff with ballots. And so Giuliani goes and points them out. Well, the left is going after all the revenue he's produced in his podcast called Common Sense. This is what they do. They go after your livelihood. They go after your law license. They want to lock you up. They want to bankrupt you. These people are sick. So they're Freeman and Ross, I guess, are the 2 who are suing Giuliani and One American News. I guarantee this is all like left-wing big money bucks flowing to support them to take down One American News, to take down Giuliani. And what's crazy is the FBI seized all of Giuliani's devices. So he's saying it's hard for him to defend himself completely with everything they're accusing of, because the FBI seized all of his devices in 2021, all as part of a foreign influence investigation. Isn't that ironic? You have Hunter Biden with a foreign influence investigation. You have a laptop which 50 intelligence officers all clear as being Russia disinformation, possibly Russia, and they knew it was Hunter Biden exposing him and his dad and their family business. They knew about it, but still walked America through an impeachment scenario over Ukraine when Trump was saying, I just simply want you to investigate what's going on with Hunter. Trump was right. There was something going on with Hunter and Joe, and the left came after him to pull him out of office for daring to interfere and use his office for personal political gain. Oh, unlike Biden. So Giuliani has had to request $320,000 to pay a vendor to do searches of all digital devices so that he can find out any information that he might have overlooked in defending himself from the criminal indictments in Georgia. This is oh my gosh. And you wonder why it is that right now in Georgia, the Republicans who actually dominate the legislature don't challenge the DA to challenge whether or not what she's doing is even legal. And they're going to pay with Georgia taxpayer money, with Republican taxpayer money, because they're afraid to confront this machine. Governor Kemp and their attorney general is standing behind the destruction of Trump and the 19 attorneys. I wish upon them the backlash of the voting populace in Georgia. You need to get the names, and I'll give them to you. The names of the Republicans who have it within their hands to at least stand up and stand together to say, you're not going to take our taxpayer money to fund this witch hunt. And but that's exactly where it's at, because of intimidated and weak Republicans. I do think that if there's ever going to be a change in America, it's going to be when the populist movement starts to send the message to the Republicans that make up the Republican Party that either you represent the actual will of the people, or we primary you and you have a very short period of time in office. And I think we're getting to the point where there's a new kind of a Tea Party forming, and it's going to take a little while, but it's going to form, and it's going to target those weak, waffling, self-serving, uniparty Republicans that did not stand for America at a time when the left and its tyranny was trying to tear it down and intimidate it into silence. Any thoughts on this, Mercedes, before I wrap up our program? Well, the Biden administration just sent $250 million more to Ukraine. It's why Lindsey Graham was happy. I saw Lindsey was so upset when he wasn't getting all his billions of dollars for his war effort to go after Putin. But then I realized it, and I predicted then, he'll come up with it. Biden and Mitch McConnell promised him he'll get his money. And so they just got his $250 million more through an accounting error they found. It was an accounting error at the Department of Defense, and they came up with more money. So they've already provided more than $43 billion in order to prop up Ukraine against Russia, so that I guess our military manufacturers are making money. The cost of weapons going over to Ukraine is, so $43 billion, $250 million more, a dollar here, a dollar there. And what I want to do is I want to tell you that all of these things need to come up in this next presidential election. I was sickened to see all but maybe one or two hands go up at the presidential debate as to all of these Republicans. They all want to support the stupid war with Russia. We don't need a war with Russia. Ukraine, I'm sorry to say, is still like the third or fourth most corrupt laundry money nation. I wonder where that money's actually going. I wouldn't be surprised to see it recycle right back into the Democratic Party for all I know, because we don't know where the money is and where the money's going. Mercedes, do you have anything to say before we land this plane?
Just that you do this every day, Lance. I know we're here on Real America's Voice on Saturday, but every single day, if you go to lancewallnau.com/podcast, you can listen to these truth bombs every single day.
Every single day, folks. We got like 11 million downloads, and we want you to be part of that live experience every day. See you again. Hey, let's take a moment right here and talk about something. You know, these programs are actually paid for by sponsors, and so the one thing that I always do is try to pick the sponsors that have the greatest value. Those are the ones that I myself believe in. Now, the Birch Gold Group is one of those key sponsors, and I'll tell you why. The economy is the area that I'm the most concerned about in terms of instability in the future. Do you know that right now, China and Russia and India is meeting with Saudi Arabians and South Africans to create an alternative economy, to basically crush the dollar? This is going to have a massive effect on the stock market, on real estate. It'll be a real shaking. But you don't have to be shaken, because there's a way you can protect your retirement, your 401ks, your IRAs, by connecting them in with gold. Gold is unique in history in that it's a place of stored value. In fact, those BRICS nations of Brazil and Russia, India and China, they're going to be backing themselves with, guess what? Gold. So be smart. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and get a free information kit. Get knowledge, act quickly, don't wait. And they're going to be able to help you make a great decision on what to do. Remember, that information is free with no strings attached. Do it now, lancewallnau.com/Birch.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.